I feel the entire reason the entire cosmos exists is so that emotion can interact with itself. Music is the strongest catalyst for emotion. It's about love, hate, and everything in between. If you think about life, without emotion, without music, it has really no meaning. Emotion is at the core of why humans have purpose, why humans have passion. The bowed strings have the strongest influence on emotion and creativity. My name is Anton Kreutz. I make violins, violas, cellos, and basses in Merriam, Kansas. I grew up in Russia and I immigrated to the United States when I was 8 years old. There is a very, very strong tradition in Russia of string playing. So I've always been around string instruments. My mom is a violinist. My father was a bass player. I was always surrounded by it. It came naturally for me, while to others, it seems like a very, very foreign thing to do. To me, it was so natural because it was part of my history that made it very, very comfortable for me. I think I make instruments because I really love the instruments and I really love the sound. You get lost into the art of it. Working with wood, you're working with tools. When I was in violin making school, for instance, I would start working and making an instrument at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I remember once thinking, oh, you know, I'm hungry. It's probably lunchtime. And I looked at the time and it was 5:30. You're completely immersed within the concept of what you're doing to shape that wood. The knowledge that it takes to make those instruments is internal knowledge that's been passed on for 4 centuries. And so it really is a craft that hasn't, in many ways, not changed for 4 centuries. Every aspect of the piece of wood, every aspect of the composition of the varnish have to be precise in order to be great. The violin blades, once they're being finished up, tenths of millimeters actually make a difference to the sound of the instrument. The reason why you have to make them by hand is because each piece of wood has a different vibration, each piece of wood has a different density. When you're carving on the piece of wood, you're able to understand what needs to happen as you're working on it. You're looking at what is the reality of the wood then, and then what is the reality of what the wood should be. And through that process, you're able to make the best instrument possible. And a machine just doing it from start to finish cannot do that. I equate instruments to people. So it has a back, ribs, a belly, and a head. And so it's like a little person. The white instrument's kind of like the skeleton. And if you put 10 skeletons side by side, they all look very similar. The ground or the sealer that goes on top of the instrument, that's kind of like the skin. And the colored varnish, that's like the clothes on the person. And so when you put the ground or the sealer on top of the instrument, that really starts changing the character because that's the skin of the instrument and it has an incredible amount to do with the acoustics once it's done. In this field, the level of competition is incredibly high. When I'm making a new instrument, the player that's playing on that instrument is also trying instruments that have been made for the last 200 or 300 years. Instruments actually get better as they get played. It's called getting played in. Sort of like a human doing yoga. You get more and more flexible, you get more agile. So these instruments are actually responding better and better and better as they get played. So when I'm making an instrument, not only does it have to have a great sound, but it also has to compete in that sound and be better than something that's been improving for 200 or 300 years. I think humans really have a very close connection with the sound of string instruments because of all the divine aspects to it. The design of the instrument is all made from spirals. Everything on this instrument, from the lower bouts to the C bouts to the upper bouts to the F holes, how they're placed, how they're made, everything is golden section geometry. And at that time, when they were making instruments and designing them, geometry was all connected to divinity. So we have an instrument that really is made of divine proportions. And that's one of the reasons these instruments sound as good as they do. The sound of the instrument that comes closest to the human voice. All those things come together, really have a strong impact on humans and how they interact with each other through these string instruments. Classical music transcends generations, it transcends countries, it transcends nationalism. It really is an international language. When I'm making instruments and they're played by players all over the world, really it's a transcendent emotion.
Drumming, it connects to people. There's a thing about it where folks in community can hear one another. They can feel something in common. Hi, I'm Derek Sharp. I started building drums under the name Treehouse Custom Drums in the year 2000. Drum building by hand is slower. It is less efficient to the point I might say it's inefficient. It's a mental exercise to focus on being precise, to measure things, to cut exactly. For example, I'll drill a hole that a piece of metal is going to fit into that's screwed on. You'll never see the hole. But I know that I didn't put the mark in the wrong place or drill it mistakenly. I knew it's a cylinder because I put it there. It's an exercise in an ethic of doing it right just because it's the right thing to do. Maybe this is my high. I make that drum, I have this anxiety, I have this good anxiety, this nervous energy to do it well. Turn the music up, go in the basement, exercise my introversion, and make a drum. Put on the headphones, make the world go away. I make it, it's done, that's my fix. This is my getaway. This is my emotional recharge. This is a reset for me. As a musician, it's in my soul. I have to do it. I have to hit the drum. When I see someone using a Treehouse drum set on stage, when I hear someone play the thing I made, it's an honor. I think the biggest word I can put on this is fascination. I just look at this with an air of pinch me, is this real? It's also interesting for me to hear things that different artists do with my instruments that I've never thought of. I'm that kind of personality type that wants to connect to a person. Something about this drum building is fulfilling to me in the sense that it's me a builder and you a customer. I still want to know that person because I'm curious. Is this going to be in a modern art museum in New York City on the wall that nobody will ever hit? Or is this going to get burned up in a video? Or is this going to Europe under a plane for a tour? Different people have different angles, and those stories are interesting to me. I can get at that one-on-one, but if this were a huge company, I wouldn't know those folks, and that's not interesting to me. What's a little kid in tiny town Kansas doing making an instrument that goes to Wembley Field and is played in front of 50,000 people on BBC? From Topeka, Kansas, in a basement, in a building 24 feet wide. That's just amazing to me. Let's come together and play music together the way I know how to bring that to a group of non-musicians is the immediate success you can get in making a sound on a drum. You don't have to have a special way to hold your mouth, to blow a horn. You don't have to have special knowledge. It's real basic. You take something and you smack something else with it, and you can instantly get a successful sound. Doing that in a group, sharing these ideas with folks and, breaking down some barriers, that's a lot of fun. I can be a part of a family or a community or a band and not even know the good that happened when they get together to play music. And that's just fascinating, how a piece of me can go out there and help people connect, even beyond my life. It's pretty neat that I can do something that will outlive me. I will make something that my customers' kid could use. Something about our industry is, as with many things in our culture, this notion of planned obsolescence is growing. I'm not in the mood. I want to make an instrument that's going to last far beyond my life. And that takes time and a little bit of experience and attention to detail to do it right so it does last and so it's quality. But that's appealing to me. I don't have the skill to carve a statue that thousands of years from now will be in some museum. I can do what I can do. I make drums. Taking the time to make an instrument to the best of my ability, to make it what, in my opinion, is right. And in so doing, I make an instrument that will last. These drums are my legacy.
Music at its root just really connects with me on a deep level. It taps in to an emotion that I don't get with anything else. When you're working on an instrument, everything kind of goes away. I'm Mike Carr again, the founder of B.A.C. Musical Instruments. They call me the Horn Doctor. That's my stage name, I guess. At B.A.C., we're not making tens of thousands of that instrument a year. We're making one at a time. These techniques have been handed down from master craftsman to apprentice for literally hundreds of years. Doing what we do the way we do it, it's kind of like a living museum. We're trying to preserve the way instruments used to be made, creating something from a flat, raw piece of brass. When I have a bell in my hand and a mallet in the other, and I'm pounding it against a block of wood, I'm so focused on what I'm doing because we want something that sounds unparalleled with any other company out there. Just being able to create something with your hands, acoustically, it absolutely provides a particular quality of sound and responsiveness for the musician. The way the instruments play, the way they sound and react is really a big part of why we do what we do. But it's also a tribute to all of the American craftsmen that came before us. All of the great masters of manufacturing brass instruments in the United States since the early 1800s. This is absolutely a dying craft. If we weren't doing this, it could go away forever. At B.A.C., we work intimately with our musicians. Each of our artists, the instrument is made specifically for them. So we're not making a trombone, we're making your trombone. When an instrument is mass-produced and you have, let's say, a bell arrives from a piece of brass into a particular shape, yes, the shape will dictate the pitch and the tone and how the horn will sound, but it's more about how the bell arrived at that shape that truly dictates the character of the sound. So if you think about an old samurai sword, the way that they fold over the steel, they hammer and pound out the steel, and they fold it over and they pound it out. Every time you do that, you're strengthening the molecules of the steel. You're making it stronger. You do that 1,000 times, you can literally slice through another sword. What's not so different on brass, every time we hammer and pound the horn out, you're changing the molecules of the brass, and we anneal it, we hammer it. So you're constantly moving the brass back and forth, and you're changing its state many, many times. So what we find is that there's more colors to the sound, there's more overtone, there's more depth and complexity to the sound. And that's one of the magical things we do. Quite literally, the sound is more interesting for the musician and also for the audience. Because of the nature of it being handcrafted, every single instrument's gonna have its own identity. They're all gonna be unique to themselves. That's part of the beauty for a musician to be able to get something truly handmade, because the sound is gonna be their distinct sound that only that horn can do. They want to have a distinctive sound. They want to have their sound. We can't possibly duplicate that exactly ever again. When I hear my horns on stage, it's just an overwhelming feeling. You're accessing something that is a really deep meditation. They're pouring their soul into that instrument, and they're expressing themselves in the deepest way you could possibly imagine. And being a part of that extension of their soul, I get the goosebumps every time. It's like, man, I'm part of this. I'm allowing them to access their voice. That's just unlike anything I can describe. Having instruments out in the world, literally around the world, it's the legacy of not only myself, it's the legacy of the people that work here that are equally as passionate as I am, that are dedicated as much as I am. And I think that's what makes what we do really remarkable. With each instrument that's handmade, the legacy of that craftsman lives on through it.
There's something in me that I want to create stuff. The guitar gives me an outlet where I can make something. It's pretty cool. People appreciate it.
I ain't never coming back. Baby, that's a fact that I can't love you anymore.
I just like being out here on the bench working. That's what I like, probably better than anything. We're Triggs Guitars. I'm Jim. This is Ryan. We hand make guitars, mandolins, and banjos. We're a father-son team. I've been doing this about 40 years. Ryan been with me for 20 years, and he's out here with me in the shop most days, you know, making sawdust. That's what we do for a living. It started out as a hobby. I was playing banjo back in high school, and then I wanted a Gibson mandolin. Back then, they were, I think, $1,500 or $1,800, which for a guy making $1.60 an hour at the grocery store wasn't in my budget. So I decided to try to make one. It took about a year because I didn't know what I was doing, first of all. A friend of mine saw it after it was strung up, and he goes, "Hey, will you make me one?" So I thought, hey, I might be able to make a few of these things. Started making mandolins full time.
There's a soul to what we make. I think these instruments they're living, breathing things, and they evolve over time. But that's part of what we're selling, is the hands-on craft approach.
We're using the same techniques to build these as Martin did and Gibson did early on. It all came from the violin lute. The guys have been doing it for hundreds of years.
Our practices here in the shop, doing things by hand instead of mechanically. For me, it's the only way to get that sound and that feel. You know, this is kind of almost a lost art as far as, you know, building by hand. That's how they used to be made in the 30s, 40s, 50s.
We try to make stuff that sounds 60 years old right out of the gate, and that's not easy to do.
It might take 8 to 10 months from, you know, taking a slab of wood until delivering the product. But for us, it's worth it. We're gonna put in the extra time, and it ends up being a piece of art in the end.
Probably the most excited that I get about instrument construction is what I would call whitewood, which is the instrument before any finish is put on it. I get so excited when I see a nice piece of maple because I can envision what it's going to look like when it's done. I know what different arches are on different guitars and even different eras of the same guitar. It's all up here. It's hard to explain when somebody asks you, how do you know that? I don't know. A lot of what I do is by feel and gut. It's worked for 40 years, and I'm too old to start using machines.
Even though you know what the wood looks like and how it feels, you don't know exactly what it's going to sound like. You just don't know. It's a mystery.
My favorite part is probably after 6, 8, 9 months, you know, you've done hundreds of hours worth of work. You're starting to string it up, and you might hear something you really like, because stringing the instrument up is the baby being born, you know. I can pluck one string and hear one note and know what the whole guitar is going to sound like. You get that chill up your spine. Oh, this thing's going to sound awesome, you know.
That moment where you're like, oh, I made this. You know, it's just it's a crazy feeling. Growing up, he'd have me sweep in the shop, you know, when I was a teenager and things like that. Never was super interested in what he was doing, you know, caught up in my own world. But then when I got into playing guitar myself, that's kind of when I started appreciating musical instruments, I guess, for what they are, and kind of light bulb went off, you know, hey, I can learn from him, you know. Not that many people have this opportunity, and this might be something that I want to do as a career. You know, it's turned into a family business, but it's more than that. You know, for me, just getting to be with my dad and create these pieces of musical instrument art. you can't put a price on it, you know, so.
I've done, I think, just about everything that I've wanted to do. I've made enough guitars in my life, but it's still fun as long as he's here, you know. There's been some people ask me, Jim, if you retire, what would you do? And honestly, I've told them I'd probably make guitars and give them to my friends. I just like making guitars.